Has this ever happened to you? That moment when you decide that this time, things will be different. You start a new habit with full enthusiasm, feeling in control, but 2 weeks later, everything falls apart. The motivation fades, life gets in the way, and before you even realize it, you're back where you started. Frustrating, right? Yeah, I've been there too, and that's when I discovered where I was going wrong. And believe me, the solution is much simpler than it seems. So, make sure to subscribe, hit the like button, and stick with me because today, I'm going to show you how to build lasting habits. I tried everything. Planners, productivity apps, fancy techniques. But nothing stuck. I always thought I needed more time, more discipline, more willpower. Until one day, without much expectation, I did something completely different. A change so small that at first, it didn't seem like a big deal. But that's exactly what transformed everything. What if I told you that 5 minutes a day could change your life? Sounds ridiculous, right? But once I understood the true power of this concept, I never looked at habits the same way again. And today, I'm going to show you how it works, and why this might be exactly what you need. If there's one thing I've learned in this process, it's that the problem was never a lack of discipline. The real issue is how we try to build habits. Most people believe that to change their lives, they need a massive transformation, start working out every day, read a book a week, wake up at 5 a.m. And that's where everything goes wrong. Because in the beginning, yes, we're motivated. But after a few days, life starts to weigh us down. The day was exhausting, energy is low, and that new habit that once seemed like a great idea now feels like a burden. So, we skip one day. Then another. And before we know it, we've given up again. This happens because we try to change everything at once. But the truth is, our brain hates sudden changes. It resists, looks for shortcuts, and does everything it can to go back to the old pattern. And the bigger the change, the greater the resistance. That's why so many plans fail. Maybe this has happened to you. You buy a planner full of ambitious goals, but it ends up forgotten after the first week. You start a diet with all the motivation in the world, but at the first obstacle, you quit. You sign up for the gym, but a month later, you barely remember you're paying for it. This doesn't mean you lack willpower, it just means you're following a method that doesn't work. But what if, instead of fighting against your brain, you learn to work with it? That's exactly what I discovered, and in today's video, I'll show you how to transform habits in a simple and lasting way. So, stick around until the end. I realized I needed to try something different. Instead of promising myself I'd read for 30 minutes a day, I started with just 5 minutes. That's it. No ambitious goals, no heavy commitments. Just a ridiculously short amount of time that I knew I could do without excuses. On the first day, I read for 5 minutes and closed the book. The second day, I did the same. By the third day, I started losing track of time and ended up reading for 10 minutes without realizing it. And then, without effort, it started growing. In a few weeks, reading had become natural for me. That's when I had my breakthrough. The secret isn't in the size of the habit, but in how often it happens. This worked for everything. When I wanted to start meditating, instead of trying 20 minutes right away, I sat down and closed my eyes for just 2 minutes. Gradually, I increased it. When I wanted to exercise, I started with just 5 push-ups a day. Then, I moved up to 10. Before I knew it, I was going to the gym without having to force myself. The reason is simple: when an action is small enough not to trigger mental resistance, the brain accepts it more easily. Instead of needing motivation, the habit slips into the routine effortlessly. And the most amazing part? Small daily actions add up to massive results over time. Think about it, if you read just 5 pages a day, by the end of the year, that's 1,825 pages read. That's about 6 or 7 books. If you exercise for just 5 minutes a day, that's 30 hours of training in a year. Something that seems insignificant at first becomes incredibly powerful over time. And the best part? Once the habit is established, increasing the duration happens naturally. That's how I transformed my routine, without needing superhuman discipline or impossible sacrifices. But why does this happen? The answer is science, and that's what I'm about to show you now. If this sounds too good to be true, know that there's a scientific explanation behind it. The human brain is wired for efficiency. It doesn't like drastic changes because they require more energy and effort. But when a change is small enough, the brain accepts it without resistance. This is known as the principle of neurological accommodation. Small repetitions create strong connections between neurons, making an action automatic over time. And that's exactly why small habits are so powerful. Psychologist B.J. Fogg, creator of the Tiny Habits method, explains that starting with something minimal, like brushing just one tooth instead of your entire mouth, dramatically increases the chances of forming a lasting behavior. That's because the brain sees the action as easy and acceptable. Another key concept is the 2-minute rule, popularized by James Clear, author of Atomic Habits. He states that any new habit should start so small that failing seems ridiculous. Instead of committing to reading for 30 minutes, start with 2 minutes. Instead of promising to run 5 kilometers, just put on your shoes and step outside. The logic is simple: once you start, momentum naturally pushes you further. On top of that, there's the domino effect, a phenomenon where one small change triggers a chain reaction. When you establish a habit, even a tiny one, it begins to influence other areas of your life. A study published in the European Journal of Social Psychology found that small positive habits create a disproportionate impact on overall discipline. People who started doing short workouts also began eating healthier, sleeping earlier, and gaining better emotional control. This connects to a concept called identity-based habits. The secret to changing behavior isn't just about doing something new, it's about starting to see yourself differently. For example, if you read for 5 minutes every day, regardless of how much, you begin to see yourself as a reader. If you do push-ups daily, even if just a few, you start to see yourself as an active person. This means that by focusing on small habits, you're not just changing actions, you're changing your identity. And that's when everything shifts. But how do you apply this in real life? I'm about to show you exactly how to start today. How to apply this method right now. Now that you understand why this method works, the next question is, how do you put it into action right away? The secret lies in following a simple 4-step process. 1. Choose a ridiculously easy micro-habit. The biggest mistake people make is trying to start too big. Instead of promising to read 50 pages a day, start with 1 page or just 5 minutes. If you want to start working out, do 5 push-ups or walk for 2 minutes. The goal here isn't immediate results, it's to create consistency. 2. Attach the habit to something you already do. If you try to remember a new habit out of nowhere, you'll likely forget. The best way to make sure it happens is to link it to something already in your routine. For example, after breakfast, read for 5 minutes. Before brushing your teeth, do 5 push-ups. After sitting at your work desk, write down one idea in your notebook. This is called habit stacking, a technique that uses existing routines to add new behaviors without extra effort. 3. Track your progress in a simple way. Our brain loves to see progress. That's why tracking your habits visually helps maintain motivation. One easy way to do this is to use a habit calendar. Every day you complete your small goal, mark it with a heavy check mark on paper. It may seem silly, but this simple act creates a powerful psychological effect called positive reinforcement. 4. Eliminate the need for motivation. If you need motivation to do something, you've already started the wrong way. The key is to make the habit so small that you can do it even when you don't feel like it. The surprising part? Once you start, you'll often do more than expected. Many times, 5 minutes turns into 10 or 15, without even realizing it. But the initial commitment stays the same, just 5 minutes. How this method creates lasting change. Now that you know how to apply this method, one question remains: what kind of results can this bring over time? I'm about to show you how this approach can transform your life in a real and lasting way. What happens when you stick to a small habit long enough? At first, it feels insignificant. But over time, those tiny changes start to build up, creating a real transformation. That's exactly what happened to me. When I started reading for just 5 minutes a day, I didn't think it would make much difference. But months later, I had read several books. When I started doing 5 minutes of exercise, I thought it wouldn't have much impact. But before I knew it, my body was stronger and my energy had improved. And I'm not the only one. Researchers have found that people who start with small, consistent habits are the ones who succeed the most in making long-term changes. That's because real impact doesn't come from what you do once, it comes from what you repeat every day. Now, imagine applying this mindset to different areas of your life. Small daily changes can turn you into a more disciplined, more productive, healthier person, all without massive effort or extreme lifestyle changes. The most powerful thing about this method is that it removes frustration. There's no pressure, no guilt, just a small action that becomes part of you. And when that happens, change stops feeling difficult and starts feeling natural. Now, it's time for action. And now comes the most important part, putting it into practice. To help you with that, I have a challenge for you. Now that you understand the power of small habits, I challenge you to pick one micro habit and test it for 7 days. Just 5 minutes a day, nothing more. Then, come back here and let me know in the comments how it went. Remember, the secret isn't doing a lot at once, it's doing a little every day. Small actions, stacked over time, create changes that seem impossible at first. And if you want to keep going on this journey, in my next video, I'll show you how to turn any habit into something automatic, without effort. Don't miss it. Now, tell me, which micro habit are you going to test this week? Comment below, I'll be checking in on your results.